Thank you so much for joining me today. The ongoing COVID-19 crisis has shaken the foundations of global society and underscores our fractured relationship with nature and each other. My research is motivated by COVID-19's possible origins in a zoonotic outbreak in a wet market, which can be broadly defined as a market selling consumption-oriented perishable goods in a non-supermarket setting. My aim is to explore the perceived and actual risks such markets pose to both human health and biodiversity. Following allegations that a wet market in Wuhan, China, was the source of the COVID-19 pandemic, there have been numerous calls to close all wet markets for good in China and around the world. Such calls have been made by policymakers, public health experts, NGOs, and even celebrities. Now, I grew up in the mountains of Indonesia and amidst the hustle and bustle of inner city Taiwan, both places where wet markets abound. From personal exposure and experience, it is abundantly clear to me that a blanket vilification of all wet markets lacks nuance, given how such markets can drastically differ in their constitution and consequently in the types and severity of risk they pose. For example, this image on the left shows a wet market in Taipei, Taiwan, starring my late grandma and her shopping trolley filled with fruits and vegetables. Now compare this to the image on the right of a wet market in Sulawesi, Indonesia, where wild-caught animals like this reticulated python can be found. The stakes here are high. On one hand, a mischaracterization of wet markets can lead and has led to cultural xenophobia and racial discrimination. On the other hand, a small number of wet markets clearly can and do pose real dangers to human health and biodiversity. This threat must be deftly but delicately addressed. To inject clarity into this space, my research aims to differentiate between wet markets, wildlife markets, and live animal markets, terms that are often misused and conflated, and seeks to create a risk spectrum framework for use by decision makers using such factors as the length and breadth of the market supply chain, the degree of interspecies mixing in animal density, and the extinction risks of the animals sold. The ultimate goal is to help policymakers make informed and effective risk-adjusted decisions on wet market reforms, all without unnecessarily endangering the livelihoods and access to food of the many millions wet markets serve, both in Asia and around the world. Thank you.